Good evening, everyone. This is Mike Sainato, journalist for the New York Observer, Counterpunch, and The Hill. I'm excited about tonight's show. Tonight we have Tezlyn Figaro. If you don't know her, she's the former National Justice Director for the Bernie Sanders campaign, and she works with Nina Turner as well. Tezlyn, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Michael.
So can you start off by telling us a little bit about, what your capacity was with the Bernie Sanders campaign and, how that experience was and, any, stories you can share with us?
Okay, there could be quite a few of them. Started first, prior to the Bernie Sanders campaign, I was and still am Senator Nina Turner's Director of Communications. So when she decided to become a surrogate with the campaign, that obviously, gave me an opportunity to join with her as well. So I kind of did a dual role, still serving in my capacity with her, not technically under the campaign, but that was what I was doing prior to. So I did a dual capacity, was still working with her on all of her media, her strategy, and so forth. And then in the African American Outreach Department, which was the national department, where I had an opportunity to pretty much create a role for racial justice. We were all, trying to figure out where we could best serve within the campaign. And so I thought that the racial justice platform was the thing closest and dear to me, with the work that I've done with Attorney Benjamin Crump, who is Trayvon Martin's attorney, Mike Brown's attorney, that's a client of mine. And so I've done just a lot of work on the justice side. And so I thought that, that would be the best fit for me. So traveled all over the country from January all the way into the end. It was a very trying time, visiting several states. Obviously, I had to go back and forth between being a single mom with my daughter, 9 years old at the time. Her dad was helping. And then also my mom, Michael, was diagnosed with cancer during that time. And it was very aggressive lung cancer. And I actually lost her while I was on the campaign in the middle of a layover. I had to go home and, spend time with her until her passing and get right back on the campaign trail. So let me say that the thing most about the campaign that I enjoyed was spending the 2 months in Flint, Michigan. I had an opportunity to go to Flint, and I took it upon myself to organize. I knew that the debate was happening that same month. You probably remember, a lot of conversations with Hillary Clinton, reaching out to the Flint community. And our campaign, to me, in my opinion, just did not have the community inroads that we should. So I went down, met some great folks, had some beautiful relationships, one with by the name of Danielle Green. So I met her, and then lo and behold, Senator Sanders decided to come down to Flint, and they said, Tezlyn, we need you to, connect him with some community members. And so I did, and 4 out of the 5 people that he met with, I personally, brought to him to meet. And that is where we saw the continuous commercials of, how he met, victims and so forth. And so I'm very proud of that, because I think that contributed to the Michigan upset, the win.
Yeah. Well, have you been in touch with anyone, back in Flint still? Because I know, although they passed a budget to give Flint $100 million recently, a few weeks ago, they still don't have clean water. So are you able to provide us with any updates about what's been going on there and the experiences people have?
I mean, absolutely. It's still, a pressing issue. Again, Attorney Benjamin Crump is still working with, 15 or 20 or so, of the victims, I would say, of Flint. It's something continuous that Senator Turner is always talking about. She was just talking about it just a few weeks ago when we were in New York, at the Breakfast Club, how people are still not talking about the people of Flint and how they don't have water. And then Danielle Green, the young lady that I just mentioned, well, not young lady, but the young woman that I just mentioned to you, she now serves on the school board. So, she had an opportunity to say, what more can she do within her community, which is what the Bernie Sanders revolution was all about, really getting people not just involved to vote for him, but involved to see what next step they could do. That was one of the reasons that I joined, being an independent. I always tell everybody I'm not, a socialist, not even a progressive. But I would say that I believe in anti-establishment. I think that's where progressives and I, agree and really doing things to shake up the system. So her particular story certainly, has played out well, and now she's involved with still continuing to, bring that message to the forefront.
And I know a few weeks ago, there was a couple of reports on, Nina Turner, and she had a bad experience with the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party annual dinner. Can you share a little bit about what happened there, and just overall the kind of treatment that Nina Turner has received from Democrats and the Democratic Party establishment because of her strong and vocal support for Bernie Sanders?
Oh, no question. This is just my personal, not speaking as an official statement. As her, one thing about it, I'm a commentator myself, but I tell people that, I do serve as director of communications, but this is not, a statement that I'm speaking on her behalf. I will tell you from just personally witnessing, her treatment, not just from within Ohio, not from in her own county. When she first made the decision to join the Bernie Sanders campaign, I was there with her. I knew, what political capital she had at stake, that she would lose, and receive very hateful comments, emails, tweets, and people face to face that called her a traitor, that said that she would never ever win in Ohio again, whether that's a local or state seat. Pretty much some things that have really just broke her down to tears, and also not just sitting around crying, but also has made her even have more fight, about the establishment, about how the system is rigged, and how if you decide to go one way and not be the disciplined Democrat that you should be, how there is a stake, that you risk with that. And so at the county level, she's received it. At the national level, she's received it all across the country. But at the same time, Michael, she's received just as much support, if not more so, with opening a door for her to have new leadership and to step in the place of what Bernie Sanders, I guess, started to do, and to hopefully, I hope, take it to a new level.
Well, I think everyone who is watching and everyone who follows the Real Progressives page is a huge fan of Nina, and really, really appreciates her, taking the courage to be able to constantly speak out. I know in her interview with the Breakfast Club a few weeks ago, she talked a little bit about the Russian narrative and how Democrats have really embraced it and focused on it to avoid talking about the issues that impact people's daily lives. So I was interested, what your thoughts are about this whole narrative and how it's being used by the Democratic Party.
Oh, no question. During that Breakfast Club interview, I was in the room. I was standing on the side, watching the entire time. Big fan of the Breakfast Club. So she's exactly right. And the same thing that we've been consistently saying, I commentate on Fox News quite a bit. So her and I have been consistent, with saying that we're talking about everything but the people. We're not talking about jobs. We're not talking about the poor people. We're not talking about, what issues people are dealing with. Everything is around Russia. And although foreign policy is important, we can see with the recent alleged terrorist attack, if you will, that's always something, that we need to be mindful of. But at the same time, there has to be a focus on what are we going to do to move forward. The election was in November, and Democrats are still trying to not really figure out, because they know why they lost, but figure out a way to best spin the story on how they got it wrong. So as long as that narrative continues to be who unmasked who's masked, consistently talking about everything but the work, we will continue to find ourselves falling further behind. And that goes for Democrats, Republicans, independents, all three.
And you touched upon another issue of how do we move on, as Bernie Sanders supporters. What I've seen and what I've experienced is a lot of people don't really know what to do, where to go from here, whether they continue trying to work through the Democratic Party, whether they focus on holding the establishment accountable with a third party as an independent. What routes would you suggest people pursue to really hold the establishment accountable and try to actually push for reforms. All right, we'll get Tezlyn back in a minute.
Are you there?
Oh, there you go. All right.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know how much you missed of my question, but
okay.
My question was, how do you how would you recommend Bernie Sanders supporters, whether they are trying to work through the Democratic Party to change it within, or work as an independent, or support third parties? How would you? What would you recommend people do to hold the establishment accountable now, and really continue that political revolution that Bernie Sanders campaign helped make popular?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that. I tell people all the time, I mash the gas. And so when I look at that, let's look at basic physics. It takes, for a gas explosion, it takes internal and external pressure. From both sides of the fence. And so I think people have to be mature enough to understand. People ask me all the time, why did you go be a part of a progressive campaign if you're not a socialist? Well, that's because I'm a business owner. I put people to work. I believe in capitalism. I don't think that everything needs to be completely and controlled by the government. At the same time, I don't care about where you pee, or I believe in free choice. I believe in pro-choice. So I do have some left views and I have some right views. And so I think what people really need to understand is that to be a progressive pro se, we talked about this on the email, that a progressive doesn't automatically mean that every view you have is liberal. Just like what now a Republican doesn't mean everything you have is right wing. And I think what we see now is things all the way to the left and all the way to the right. And there's really not any center balance with saying that we can have different views. But what is our common view? Our common view is to get rid of the establishment, to have to go outside of the norm, to sit Congress people down who have been in office 20, 30 plus years, and to say that we need new blood, fresh blood, even if it is people that we disagree with. So that's the main thing. And so it takes internal pressure and external pressure. People say because I'm a capitalist, I must be a Republican because I'm on Fox. You see my color and you think that I am a Democrat. You see me on Fox, you think I'm a Republican. Well, guess what, folks? I'm an independent. I pick and choose, and I support people based upon principles. So it's not about what the political party is. It's about who's willing to give the pressure. Nina Turner, being her director of communications, she is within the Democratic Party. So I help her strategize her message. I am on the outside of the Democrat Party to bring the pressure from the external. Because when you get on Fox News and you say that you're speaking to 90 people, 90 million homes, to say the Democrats need to get it together, they need to hear it from both sides of the fence. So I just saw a comment said that either you for us or against us. Well, if you know anything about me, maybe you'll go look at my YouTube that says you're either for us or against us. We're moving forward. But when I say us, I will not be put into any one particular category on all views, because that's not the way that we see things. But what I will say is, when you vote for someone, when you follow someone's leadership, you should be able to clearly say, let's use Nina Turner, for example. She said she was not folding and going over to the establishment. She did not. So when you look at leadership, did the person fold like a napkin or did they not? Some people have to, some people won't. So what we all have to do, Bernie Sanders eventually ended up endorsing Hillary Clinton. That wasn't what I was going to do, but that doesn't make him less of a progressive or less of an independent. It means that's what he felt he needed to do. So people have to identify whatever leadership they want to follow. And if they don't want to follow the leadership, then do like I say, which is exactly what the gentleman said, either you're for us or against us. I feel the same way. So people who are with me, either you're with me or you're against me. Move with me or move around. So there's never been no confusion on my position. The confusion is that you cannot put me into a box based upon my color, my gender, my race, or my political party. So that's why me personally, I stick to the independent route. But I am very crystal clear, and always have been before Bernie Sanders ever got on the ballot, and will continue to be, which is support leaders that have principles, even those that I may disagree with.
And I think that's one of the reasons Bernie was so popular, because although, a lot of his proposals and his policies are, considered very liberal, he had that integrity, and he had, the courage to actually to stand up to corruption and actually to point it out.
And he's been talking about it for 30 plus years. That was what got me. If you go back, I love Facebook timeline. It tells all. What were you talking about last year, the year before? I've been talking about this for 5 or 6, 10 plus years. So either you've been consistent about this or you haven't. And so we can all go back in history and see how many people have flip-flopped. And so what attracted me to him was he has literally had this same message for 30 plus years. It's just now had a national platform. And that's what makes the difference.
My question about Bernie specifically is what he's doing now. I think a lot of people who supported him kind of feel conflicted about it because he is the outreach chair for the Democratic Party. But once in a while in between, you do hear him criticize the Democratic Party. Although whether it's Clinton supporters or establishment Democrats really get angry when you do that. So I guess my question is. What do you think? Why do you think Bernie is doing what he's doing? Working in the party, and how do we popularize and kind of get people to have the courage to stand up to Democrats and actually tell it like it is, more often, and not just have to rely on Bernie being the only, he is an independent, but really being the only person within the whole Democratic Party realm that is willing to actually point out and do some introspection.
Well, people tell him that he has no business speaking because he's not a Democrat. So people say, he's not a Democrat. He ran on a Democrat ticket. So the same thing with Martin Luther King when they called him an agitator and outside agitators. It's usually the outside agitators that have the courage and the guts and the balls, if you will, that will speak up. Because just the same way that one of the comments said, oh, either you're with us or against us. When people start thinking I have to belong to one particular party or one particular group, one sorority, one club, one church, one this, then you start becoming brainwashed into the idea that everything you think I have to believe. And so then it allows you to stop from speaking out because then you're feeling as if you're portraying someone. Let me tell you something. My ancestors, whether you talk about Figaro, is Spanish, French, and Italian, and also black. So that means that all of my ancestors paid a price for this country, in addition to me serving in the United States military. And I wasn't a secretary, sir. I was an M60 gunner. So don't get it twisted. So whatever position that I have, I can make that decision based upon each individual policy. And so some of us doesn't necessarily have to be a part of a group to criticize it. I can be independent, saying something about Democrats. I can be saying something about Republicans. But as long as I am an African-American woman and you identify me as black or Hispanic, then I definitely can say something to the Democrat Party because over 90% of the black vote goes to Democrats. So until we start learning that we can still all be family, all have opinions and disagree with each other, not necessarily on the party that you belong to, because when you belong to something, that usually says that you feel you have something to lose. Bernie Sanders has nothing to lose. He's an independent, so either they're going to, support him or not. And so the Democrats within the party, those who are still trying to make the ranks, those who are still trying to get ahead, even a lot of my colleagues that I work with would never say anything on the national level, because they want the next job. And see, as far as I'm concerned, Tezlyn Figaro, who came from nothing with the shirt on my back at 19, I'll go Uber. As long as Uber is still allowing me to jump in my car and go around and be able to make $10 at a time, I'm okay with it. So the question comes down to, what sacrifice are you willing to give? All the way from a financial sacrifice, from a physical sacrifice, and then are you willing to give away to put your career on the line or lose your seat? And a lot of current Democrats are not willing to speak up because they do not want to lose their seats. And that's also the same reason why we lost over 1,000 plus seats. I left the Democratic Party in 2012, long before all of this happened, because of what I saw after the primaries, after the 2008 election. And in 2012, on a local level in Florida, we lost all of the seats because people were afraid to speak up. So instead of people commenting saying either you're for me or against me, the question is, are you for yourself? Because I'm probably the last person that you got, the only one who's willing to say something to those who think they rule you. So people like me should be celebrated. And I think one of your other comments, because you did say respond to the comments, said, how can you support someone you may not believe in? Well, like Malcolm X said, I'd rather know when I'm dealing with the wolf or dealing with the sheep. And so I need to know who you are and what you deal with. And so even if you're somebody that I disagree with, at least I know your position. People need to be consistent in whatever that they're doing. Even if you're consistently wrong, be consistently wrong. If you're consistently right, be consistently right. The question is, who are you when I see you? If I don't know you and you change every election and every year, then that means there's some inconsistency in the game. So people should praise God, thank God for those that I know who are for me or against me. And so until you start understanding that, that's when we start having real mature conversations and dialogue on how do we move forward and who do we put into positions of power. I'm going on my little rant.
I appreciate it. That's why we're here. Just my last question: is there anything else you'd like our viewers to know? And can you tell us a little bit about what Nina Turner is doing now, and what she's looking to do in the near future?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. She's somebody that I, follow to the end of the road. We have things that we absolutely agree on, when we're talking about the poor and the voice and healthcare being a right and people having an opportunity to work and those types of things are sincere to her heart. Her and I both share common denominators. A lot, brings us apart together on how we grew up and losing our mothers and things of that sort. So she's just an honor to follow as a mentor, as a client, as a friend, as a sister. And I think people see her in that same way. So there's a lot, that she's working on as far as books that are coming out. I encourage people to support it, to listen to her story of her grandmother's 3 bones. She's working on the Nina Turner show that's now, on Real News Network. We were down in New York recording about 6 or 7 episodes with that. So right now we're doing about 13 episodes with them and, see how that comes into play, where she's really interviewing, regular folks, on the ground who's actually doing the work. And then, of course, what she's doing on the board with the Revolution, continuing to be available to organize, to put people in office. Because one thing about it is you don't hear a lot about who is supporting who and how do you support that person. So that's something that, that she just does daily. And on top of that, still being a college professor. So there's a lot, that people can follow her on Twitter. Nina Turner is very simple to see, to hear, her thoughts. She's now at CNN and doing some commentary there. So just expect, a lot of great things from her this year and her leadership. And I'm excited because I think that people want to have different leaders. It's not just up to one person. It's not up to just Bernie Sanders. It's certainly not up to think I've just lost my train. Elizabeth Warren, for sure. I personally, I kind of have issues with that, Mike, because, during the entire campaign, she said nothing at all, didn't make a choice or a position. And then as soon as Hillary Clinton was in, oh yeah, now I'm the progressive, superwoman. And so that just gives to show you another example, who did you support? And if you supported Senator Sanders, and where were you? Because we damn sure needed you on the campaign when we were out there getting doors slammed in our face. So that's the type of leadership, that I'm looking for. And so until we see that, and I think we see that in Nina Turner, until we start to see more of that on any side of the aisle, we'll continue to just keep doing more of the same.
No, I agree. And I think a lot of people watching agree. Elizabeth Warren was silent with Bernie. She was silent on the Dakota Access Pipeline, even though she's, claimed to be of Cherokee heritage. So in that kind of spinelessness and silence is really disheartening, and I think has helped drive the Democratic Party into the ground. But Tezlyn, thanks for coming on this evening.
Thank you.
It was it was a pleasure meeting you, and I hope to have you on again sometime in the future. Feel free to add anything else before we head off on the broadcast.
Okay, yeah, let me give my own self a plug. Certainly reach out to me with your good or bad or indifferent, really doesn't make a difference. Tezlyn Figaro at Twitter. I also did a webinar last week, Mike, called Are You Gonna Run for Office or Run Your Mouth? And it is certainly about how to, be the things that I've learned with candidates, not just on the federal level, but on the local level as well. I'll be continuing that webinar series. We had a great time. I give it to you the raw and the real. It is certainly not the establishment. I've been to Congressional Black Caucus boot camp. I've been to Yale Law School camp for women, political boot camp for women. I've been to the White House Project, you name it, I've been there, but I have yet to see anybody to tell it like it really is. So please, log on my website, TezlynFigaro.com, stay in contact with me, and baby, you're going to get it whether you like it or not. I will consistently be right here telling you the truth. I believe in rolling over toes if necessary. And so stay in contact, guys, and appreciate your time, Michael. We've interviewed a couple times, but this was really fun and nice. I love interactive type stuff. So guys, stay in contact with me, and we'll see you online.
Thank you, Tezlyn. All right, good night.
Thank you. Good night.